My older brother, the golden child, needed a kidney transplant to survive. Without hesitating, I agreed to be the donor. I woke up from surgery to find out that not only had he received my kidney, but he had also used my recovery as an opportunity to steal the girlfriend I loved. My parents called it a complicated situation and asked me to be understanding. But the only thing I understood is that they didn't just save my brother's life, they allowed me to see the truth about the family I thought I had. My name is Daniel, and for 26 years, I lived to be my brother Pedro's safety net. He, 2 years older, was born with a chronic kidney condition that made him fragile, the center of my parents' worries and adoration. I, on the other hand, was born healthy. And that health, ironically, defined my role in the family. I was the strong one, the stable one, the one who couldn't have problems because all emotional and financial resources were already allocated to Pedro. Don't get me wrong, I loved my brother. When we were kids, I protected him from bullies, helped him with his homework when he missed classes for doctor's appointments, and gave up my own wishes so he could have what he needed. It was what was expected of me. But as we grew up, this dynamic became toxic. My parents, consumed by anxiety over Pedro's health, created a bubble around him. He never had responsibilities, never faced consequences. If he got a bad grade, it was because he was stressed about his condition. If he was rude to me, it was because he was in pain. I, on the other hand, was held to twice the standard. My achievements were minimized, and my problems were ignored. The person who brought light into my life was Julia. We met in college and fell in love instantly. She was the only person who saw me as Daniel, not as Pedro's brother. She encouraged me, celebrated my small victories, and listened to me when I felt invisible in my own home. We dated for 4 years, and she became part of the family, always incredibly supportive of Pedro's situation. A year ago, the news we had all been dreading arrived. Pedro's condition worsened dramatically. He needed a kidney transplant, and he needed it fast. The waiting list was long and uncertain. Panic took over my home. My parents were devastated. Without a second thought, I offered to get tested for compatibility. I was healthy, close in age, and the chances were good. The result came back, a perfect match. The decision was instantaneous. I would donate my kidney to my brother. There wasn't even a doubt in my mind. It was what I had to do. My parents cried with relief, calling me a hero. Pedro hugged me, the first time in years I had felt genuine affection from him. Julia was apprehensive about the risks of the surgery but supported me unconditionally. "It's the most noble thing I've ever seen anyone do," she told me. The weeks leading up to the surgery were a whirlwind of tests and preparations. Julia was by my side every step of the way. Curiously, during this period, she and Pedro became closer. She would visit him at the hospital when I couldn't, bring him books, and they would talk for hours. I thought it was beautiful. I thought she was just extending her support to the man whose life was about to become intertwined with mine in such a permanent way. I saw it as a sign of our strength as a future family. The surgery was a success. I woke up groggy and in pain, but the first thing I asked about was Pedro. The nurse told me he was doing well and that the transplanted kidney was already functioning. I felt a wave of relief so profound that I started to cry. I had done it. I had saved him. My own recovery was slower and more painful than I had expected. I spent almost a week in the hospital. Julia visited me every day, but something was different. She seemed distant, preoccupied. I attributed it to the stress of it all. My parents, for their part, spent almost all their time in Pedro's room. They would bring me a snack, ask if I needed anything, and then rush to the side of the more fragile patient. The old dynamic, even after I had literally given a part of myself, hadn't changed. When I was finally discharged, I went back to our apartment. Julia had prepared everything, but the distance between us was palpable. She was always on the phone, in whispered conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the room. She spent more and more time visiting Pedro at the hospital. He needs moral support, Danny. He's scared, she would say. And I, still recovering, felt guilty for even doubting her. Pedro was discharged a week after me. My parents threw a small, welcome home party for him. I was still weak and couldn't go, but I insisted that Julia go in my place. Represent both of us, I said. She hesitated, which I found strange, but eventually went. She came back late that night, her face flushed and her eyes bright. She said the party was great and that everyone missed me. The following week, while I was looking for a document on her laptop, with her permission, for something related to insurance, I saw an open chat window. It was with her best friend. Curiosity got the better of me. I scrolled up. And that's when my world, which I thought was healing, shattered into a million pieces. The messages were explicit. Julia was telling her friend about the forbidden and intense romance that had started with Pedro. It began during the hospital visits. His vulnerability, the connection they felt. On the night of the welcome home party, after everyone had left, they had gotten together. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it, one of her messages read. Danny is good, he's a saint. But Pedro, he has a darkness, an intensity that draws me in. I think I'm in love with him. I felt the air leave my lungs. The woman I loved, the woman I was planning to propose to as soon as I recovered, was having an affair with the brother whose life I had just saved, with an organ that was still aching inside my body. The betrayal was so profound, so grotesque, that it felt unreal. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. A terrifying calm washed over me. I copied the chat history to my phone. And I waited. I waited for 3 days. 3 days in which I lived a lie. I acted normally with Julia, while the truth rotted inside me. I watched her, saw the guilt and excitement in her eyes when she would lie, saying she was going to the grocery store, and come back hours later smelling of Pedro's cologne. I wanted to understand the depth of the deceit. Finally, I confronted her. Not with anger, but with a stillness that scared her more than any shout could have. I sat across from her in the living room and simply placed my phone on the coffee table, with the conversation open. Explain, was all I said. The color drained from her face. The breakdown was total. She confessed everything, between sobs of guilt and flimsy excuses. She talked about the irresistible connection, about how she didn't plan it, about how she felt torn. I listened to her until the end, expressionless. When she was done, I just said, "Pack your things and get out." "But Daniel, I love you," she cried. "No, you don't," I replied. "You love the idea of me, the safe guy, the saint. But you crave the drama, the problem child. And you used my sacrifice, the most vulnerable moment of my life, to get what you wanted. That's not love. That's parasitism." She left that night. The next day, I drove to my parents' house. I called for them and for Pedro. I sat them down in the living room. "I have something to tell you," I said. My mother started to smile, probably thinking I was going to announce my engagement to Julia. "Julia and I broke up," I continued, and the smiles vanished. "And I'd like for Pedro to explain why." Pedro went white. He looked at me, then at our parents, and started to stammer. "I don't know what he's talking about." "Yes, you do," I said, my calm beginning to fray. "Do you want to tell them, or should I?" And then, I told them. I told them about the hospital visits, about the party, about the lies. My parents' reaction was what broke me for good. My mother looked at Pedro, not with anger, but with a distorted concern. "Oh, my son, you're so fragile after the surgery. This girl must have taken advantage of you." My father turned to me. "Daniel, this is a very complicated situation," he said, in the tone of someone measuring his words. "Your brother has been through a lot. And so have you. Maybe we should all just take a breath and not make any rash decisions. They weren't angry at Pedro. They were making excuses for him. They were worried that the stress might affect his health, affect my kidney that was inside him. His betrayal was recontextualized as a consequence of his illness, and my pain, once again, was an inconvenience that needed to be managed for the sake of his well-being. I started to laugh. A bitter, joyless laugh that shocked everyone. "It's incredible," I said, shaking my head in disbelief. "I give him a part of my body so he can live. And while I'm recovering, he sleeps with my girlfriend. And your reaction is to worry about his stress? Do you have any idea how sick that is?" I stood up. "I saved his life. I've done my part. And now, I'm done." "What do you mean, you're done?" my mother asked, alarmed. "I mean my obligation to this family ended on that operating table," I replied. "I am no longer the caregiver, the pillar, the safety net. I will no longer put your needs above my own." Pedro made his choice. Julia made her choice. "And you too," I said, looking at my parents, "made your choice, just now, by defending him. And now, I'm making mine." I walked out of that house and, for the first time in my life, I felt no guilt. I felt a cutting clarity. I had spent my entire life in a role I didn't choose, defined by my brother's illness. And by saving his life, I had, ironically, set myself free. The weeks that followed were a chaos of calls and messages. My parents, realizing I was serious, panicked. They accused me of being cruel, of abandoning my brother, at such a vulnerable time. Julia tried to contact me, sending long, regret-filled emails. I blocked everyone. I changed my phone number. I requested a transfer at my job and moved to the company's branch in another city, 6 hours away. I needed a fresh start, far from their web of dysfunction. It's been 6 months now. I'm in therapy, learning to undo 26 years of conditioning, to understand that my worth isn't in what I can do for others, but in who I am. It's a slow process. I heard through a cousin that Pedro and Julia are living together. Apparently, their intense romance is facing the harsh reality of bills and routine. My parents continue to support them. Nothing has changed. Except me. Sometimes, I feel a phantom pain in my side, where the kidney used to be. It's not a physical ache, but a reminder. A reminder that I gave a part of myself to save someone who, in the end, didn't hesitate to betray me. But it's also a reminder that sometimes, you have to remove a part of yourself so that the rest can survive and heal. I lost a kidney, a girlfriend, and the family I thought I had. But in return, I gained myself. And in the end, I think it was a fair trade.